In a move that stunned the nation, President Joe Biden announced he would not seek re-election in 2024. The news, delivered in a brief statement from the Oval Office, sent shockwaves through the political landscape. Democrats, caught off guard, scrambled to adjust to a race without their standard bearer. Republicans, meanwhile, sensed opportunity in the sudden shakeup. Biden's decision marked a dramatic turn of events. Just weeks earlier, the president had insisted he intended to run, brushing aside concerns about his age and stamina. His announcement, therefore, raised questions about what had changed. Was it a calculated move, designed to unify the party behind Vice President Kamala Harris? Or did it signal deeper concerns about Biden's health or his ability to withstand the rigors of another campaign? The timing of the announcement, just months before the first primaries, added to the sense of uncertainty. It left little time for other potential contenders to mount a challenge, effectively handing the nomination to Harris. While she was widely seen as the heir apparent, the suddenness of Biden's exit left her with little time to solidify her own campaign. The Democratic Party, accustomed to rallying behind Biden, now faced the task of uniting behind a new leader in the face of a formidable Republican opponent. The announcement also had immediate implications for the balance of power in Washington. With Biden now a lame duck, Republicans in Congress were emboldened, sensing an opportunity to stymie his agenda in his remaining time in office. The political calculus on Capitol Hill shifted overnight, as lawmakers on both sides of the aisle began to position themselves for the upcoming election and the post-Biden era. Biden's decision to forego a second term was driven by a confluence of factors, both personal and political. His age, a persistent concern throughout his presidency, loomed large. At 81, he was already the oldest president in American history, and the prospect of another grueling campaign, followed by 4 more years in office, weighed heavily on him. Aides reported that Biden had increasingly confided in them about his fatigue and the toll the presidency had taken on him. Adding to these personal concerns were growing anxieties within the Democratic Party about Biden's political standing. While his approval ratings had rebounded somewhat from their lows, they remained stubbornly underwater. Economic worries, coupled with a perception that Biden was out of touch with the concerns of ordinary Americans, had eroded his support among key constituencies. The party's lackluster performance in the 2022 midterms, in which Democrats barely clung to control of the Senate and lost the House, served as a stark warning sign. Biden's own advisors, sensing the growing unease within the party, had begun to quietly urge him to reconsider his plans for 2024. They worried that another Biden campaign would be an uphill battle, particularly against a Republican opponent like Donald Trump, who remained a potent force in Republican politics. These concerns were amplified by Biden's shaky performance in recent public appearances, which raised questions about his stamina and mental acuity. The president's inner circle, once confident in his ability to secure a second term, began to have doubts. In the end, it was likely a combination of these factors that led Biden to step aside. His decision reflected a pragmatic assessment of his own limitations, as well as a recognition of the political realities facing the Democratic Party. Biden's presidency will be remembered as a time of both significant achievement and profound challenge. Taking office in the midst of a raging pandemic and a deeply divided nation, he faced a daunting set of tasks from the outset. His early months were marked by a sense of urgency and a flurry of executive actions aimed at reversing the policies of his predecessor and addressing the COVID-19 crisis. The passage of the American Rescue Plan, a $1.9 trillion economic stimulus package, provided much-needed relief to struggling families and businesses. On the foreign policy front, Biden moved quickly to repair relationships with allies strained by the Trump administration. He rejoined the Paris Agreement on climate change and took a tougher stance towards Russia, particularly in the wake of its invasion of Ukraine. His decision to withdraw American troops from Afghanistan, while widely criticized for its chaotic execution, fulfilled a campaign promise to end America's longest war. Despite these accomplishments, Biden's presidency was also marked by a series of crises and setbacks. The chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan, while fulfilling a campaign promise, damaged his standing on the world stage and raised questions about his administration's competence. The ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, while abating somewhat, continued to plague the country contributing to economic uncertainty and fueling public anxiety. Biden's domestic agenda, meanwhile, faced stiff opposition from Republicans in Congress, who blocked many of his key legislative initiatives. As Biden prepares to leave office, his legacy remains a subject of debate. His supporters point to his steady hand during a tumultuous time, his commitment to bipartisanship, and his efforts to restore America's standing in the world. His detractors argue that he has been too cautious, too willing to compromise, and too slow to address the nation's most pressing problems. Only time will tell how history will ultimately judge Joe Biden's presidency. The announcement also had immediate implications for the balance of power in Washington. With Biden now a lame duck, Republicans in Congress were emboldened, sensing an opportunity to stymie his agenda in his remaining time in office. The political calculus on Capitol Hill shifted overnight, as lawmakers on both sides of the aisle began to position themselves for the upcoming election and the post-Biden era. While she was widely seen as the heir apparent, the suddenness of Biden's exit left her with little time to solidify her own campaign. The Democratic Party, accustomed to rallying behind Biden, now faced the task of uniting behind a new leader in the face of a formidable Republican opponent.